The text came at 1:17 a.m., just as I was finally drifting off to sleep after another night of wondering where my wife really was. "I'm at the club with Max. Come pick me up?" Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stared at the glowing screen, my heart hammering against my ribs. Max, her ex-boyfriend from college. The same Max she'd been accidentally running into at coffee shops, the gym, and apparently now nightclubs. My name is Ethan Parker, and I'm a 42-year-old construction project manager who thought he had a decent marriage until 3 weeks ago. That's when I started noticing the late nights, the secretive phone calls, and the way my wife Lila would smile at her screen like she was reading love letters. Which, as it turned out, she probably was. I sat up in our king-sized bed, running my hands through my hair. The audacity was breathtaking. She was literally texting me from her affair, asking for a ride home. Did she think I was that stupid? Or did she just not care anymore? My phone buzzed again. "Ethan? Are you awake? I need you to come get me." I laughed out loud in the darkness, a bitter, ugly sound that echoed off our bedroom walls. 20 years of marriage, and this is what it had come to. My wife of 2 decades, Lila Parker, formerly Lila Morrison, the ambitious HR director who'd climbed her way to the top of Riverside Marketing Group, was drunk texting me from her reunion with the love of her college life. But here's the thing about being married to someone for 20 years. You learn their patterns, you know their friends, and more importantly, you know their enemies. I scrolled through my contacts and found the number I'd been saving for exactly this moment. Amanda Chen had reached out to me 2 weeks ago through Facebook Messenger, asking if we could talk. She was Max Webb's wife, and she'd been noticing some strange behavior too. The phone rang twice before a crisp, alert voice answered. "Ethan, is this it?" She just texted me to pick her up from the club, with him. Amanda's laugh was sharp and satisfied. "Perfect. I've been ready for this moment for weeks. Want to go collect our cheating spouses together?" "I thought you'd never ask." "Meet me at the corner of 5th and Main in 10 minutes. And Ethan, bring your camera." I was already pulling on jeans and a black t-shirt. Way ahead of you. As I grabbed my keys and wallet, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror. I looked exactly like what I was. A working-class guy who'd built a decent life through sweat and determination. 6 feet tall, graying at the temples, with the kind of weathered hands that came from 20 years in construction management. I wasn't movie star handsome like Max supposedly was, but I was real. I was loyal. And I was about to remind my wife why those qualities mattered. The drive to meet Amanda took exactly 8 minutes. She was waiting in a silver Honda Accord, engine running, looking like a woman on a mission. At 34, Amanda was sharp-featured and intense, with the kind of focused energy that made you understand why she'd become a successful tax attorney. When I climbed into her passenger seat, she handed me a manila folder thick with papers. "GPS tracking data from his car," she said without preamble. "Hotel receipts I found in his jacket pocket, screenshots of text messages he forgot to delete, and my personal favorite, credit card statements showing flowers and jewelry purchases that never made it home to me." I flipped through the evidence, whistling low. "You've been busy." "I've been thorough. What about you?" I pulled out my own phone and showed her the screenshots I'd been collecting. Lila's been sloppy too. Late-night Uber rides to addresses that aren't work or her friends' houses, gym check-ins at the same time as Max, and these text messages she's been sending to her friend Sophie, thinking I'd never see them. Amanda read over my shoulder, her eyebrows climbing higher with each message. "Max makes me feel alive again. Ethan would never understand the connection we have. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd married Max instead." She looked up at me. Wow, she really went there. 20 years of marriage, and apparently I've been the consolation prize the whole time. Well, Tonight they both find out what happens when you take your spouse for granted. Amanda put the car in drive. The club is 15 minutes away. You ready for this? I settled back in the passenger seat, feeling calmer than I had in weeks. Amanda, I've been ready for this since the first time she lied to my face about working late. The Riverside Club sat in the heart of downtown, all neon lights and bass lines that you could feel in your chest from 3 blocks away. It was the kind of place where 30 and 40-somethings went to pretend they were still 25, complete with overpriced drinks and VIP sections that cost more than my monthly truck payment. We parked in the lot behind the building, and I could already see Max's ridiculous red Corvette taking up 2 spaces near the entrance. Because, of course, he was that guy. There's his car, I said, pointing, and there's our evidence that they're both here. Amanda snapped a photo of the license plate. Time stamps matter in divorce court. As we walked toward the entrance, I felt that familiar construction site calm settling over me. It was the same feeling I got when I had to deliver bad news to a client or fire someone who wasn't pulling their weight. Unpleasant, but necessary work that required a steady hand and clear thinking. The bouncer barely glanced at our IDs before waving us through. The music hit us like a wall, some remix of a song that had been popular when Lila and I were newlyweds. The irony wasn't lost on me. VIP section is upstairs, Amanda said, leaning close to my ear to be heard over the music. That's where Max likes to show off. We climbed the stairs to the 2nd level, where the music was slightly more tolerable and the lighting was dim enough to make everyone look 10 years younger. The VIP area was roped off with velvet cords, but the hostess recognized Amanda. Mrs. Webb, I didn't expect to see you tonight. Your husband said you were out of town. Amanda's smile could have cut glass. Change of plans. Is he at his usual table? Of course, right this way. And there they were. Max Webb looked exactly like Central Casting's idea of a successful nightclub owner. Perfectly styled dark hair, expensive shirt unbuttoned 1 button too many, gold watch that caught the light every time he gestured. He was leaning back in a curved booth, one arm draped possessively around my wife. Lila looked beautiful, I had to admit. She'd always known how to dress to impress, and tonight was no exception. Black dress that hugged her curves, hair and makeup perfect despite the late hour. She was laughing at something Max was saying, her head thrown back in a way that made her look carefree and young. They looked happy. They looked like a couple. They looked like they belonged together, which made what happened next so much more satisfying. Well, well, Amanda said in a voice that carried perfectly over the music. Isn't this cozy? Both Max and Lila froze like deer in headlights. Max recovered first, that practiced charm sliding into place like a mask. Amanda, what a surprise. I thought you were visiting your sister in Portland. I was, until I got some very interesting phone calls. Amanda's voice was honey over broken glass. Hello, Lila. You look comfortable. My wife had gone pale under her carefully applied makeup. Ethan, what are you doing here? I held up my phone, showing her text message. You asked me to come pick you up. So here I am. The silence that followed was deafening, even with the club music pounding around us. I could see the wheels turning in both their heads, trying to figure out how to spin this, how to make it seem innocent. Max tried first. This isn't what it looks like, Amanda. Lila and I just ran into each other and... Save it. Amanda opened her manila folder and pulled out a stack of photographs. GPS data shows your car has been parked outside Lila's office building 17 times in the past month. Hotel receipts from the Riverside Inn for dates when you told me you were visiting clients. And my personal favorite. She held up a photograph that made Lila gasp. It showed her and Max in an intimate embrace outside a restaurant I'd never heard of. Where did you get that? Lila's voice was barely a whisper. Private investigator, I said calmly. Turns out they're not that expensive when you really need answers. Max stood up, his charm finally cracking. Now wait just a minute. You can't just… Actually, we can. Amanda pulled out another set of papers. Divorce papers, Max. Filed this afternoon. And thanks to the evidence we've collected, I'll be getting the house, the business, and most of your assets. And these, I said, handing Lila her own set of papers, are yours. I had them served at your office today, but apparently you were too busy to check your messages. The look on my wife's face was something I'd never seen before. 20 years of marriage, and I'd never seen her completely speechless. She stared at the divorce papers, like they might disappear if she blinked hard enough. Ethan, please, we can talk about this. This doesn't have to… Doesn't have to what? Doesn't have to end our marriage? You already ended it, Lila. I'm just making it official. The VIP section had gone quiet around us. Other patrons were staring, some openly, others pretending to look at their phones while they listened to every word. This was exactly the kind of drama that would be all over social media by morning. Max tried to salvage the situation one more time. Look, maybe we should take this somewhere more private. No, Amanda said firmly. I think this is perfect. Public and messy, just like your affair. She turned to address the growing crowd of onlookers. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet my soon-to-be ex-husband Max Webb, owner of this fine establishment, and his mistress Lila Parker. They've been having an affair for months, and tonight they made the mistake of thinking they were smarter than their spouses. The murmur that went through the crowd was like gasoline on a fire. In a city the size of Riverside, this kind of scandal would be front-page news in the social circles that mattered to both Max and Lila. You can't do this, Lila said, finally finding her voice. You're humiliating me. No, I replied, my voice steady and calm. You humiliated yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Max made a move toward me, his face flushed with anger and alcohol. You son of a… He never finished the sentence. Amanda stepped smoothly between us, and somehow Max found himself stumbling backward into his own booth, knocking over drinks and looking like a complete fool. Careful, honey, Amanda said sweetly. You wouldn't want to make an even bigger scene. The security team had noticed the commotion and was moving in our direction. I recognized the head of security, Reggie Thompson, a guy I'd worked with on a construction project 2 years ago. Everything okay here, Ethan? Reggie asked, his eyes taking in the situation. Just picking up my wife, I said. She texted asking for a ride. Reggie looked at the divorce papers scattered on the table, the photographs, and the faces of everyone involved. He was a smart guy. It didn't take him long to figure out what was happening. Maybe it's time for everyone to call it a night, he suggested diplomatically. Excellent idea, Amanda agreed. Max, Lila, I'm sure you can find your own way home, separately. As we turned to leave, I heard Lila call my name. Ethan, wait, please. We need to talk about this. I paused and looked back at her. 20 years of marriage, and she was still beautiful. Still the woman I'd fallen in love with in college, but she was also the woman who'd been lying to my face for months, who'd been texting me from her affair like I was her personal chauffeur. We'll talk, I said, through our lawyers. The walk back to Amanda's car felt like a victory lap. Behind us, I could hear raised voices and the sound of Max trying to do damage control with his customers. It wasn't going well. That, Amanda said as we reached her Honda, was even better than I imagined. We're not done yet, I replied, pulling out my phone. That was just the opening act. The next morning, I woke up in the guest bedroom of my own house, a precaution Amanda had suggested the night before. Change the locks, she'd said, today, before she has a chance to clean out the house or destroy evidence. Smart woman, that Amanda. I was on my second cup of coffee when my phone started ringing. First call was from Dave Martinez, my best friend and the IT guy at our construction firm. Dude, what the hell happened last night? Sophie Chen just posted on Facebook that Lila and some club owner got served divorce papers in public. Please tell me you're not falling apart. I'm not falling apart. I'm just getting started. Jesus, Ethan. How long have you known? About the affair? 3 weeks? About the fact that my marriage was over? Probably a lot longer than that. Dave was quiet for a moment. What do you need? This is why Dave had been my best friend since high school. No judgment, no lectures about trying to work it out. Just, what do you need? Can you help me secure our joint accounts? I want to make sure she can't clean them out while I'm at work. Already on it. I called my cousin Maria. She's a paralegal at Fisher & Associates. She's expecting your call at 9 a.m. Dave, you're a magnificent bastard who's got your back. I know. Also, I may have accidentally sent that video Amanda posted to a few people. What video? Check your Facebook. I hung up and opened the app. Amanda had tagged me in a video post that already had 47 shares and counting. The video showed Max stumbling backward into the booth, drinks flying everywhere, while Lila sat frozen with divorce papers in her lap. The caption read, "When you and your spouse's affair partner both get served divorce papers on the same night. Karma, or cheaters, or public service." The comments were brutal and hilarious. Is that Max Webb from the Riverside Club? Always knew he was a sleaze. Lila Parker works at my company. Can't wait for Monday morning. Amanda Chen is my hero. This is how you handle a cheating husband. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Parker, this is Jennifer Fisher from Fisher & Associates. Your friend Dave Martinez asked me to call you. I understand you need representation in a divorce proceeding? That's right, and I need to move fast. Can you be in my office in an hour? I've already reviewed the preliminary information Dave sent over, and I think we can make this very unpleasant for your wife. I liked her already. Fisher & Associates occupied the top floor of a downtown office building, all glass and steel, and the kind of expensive furniture that told you the lawyers here didn't mess around. Jennifer Fisher was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Parker, I'll be direct. Based on the evidence you and Mrs. Chen have collected, your wife has made several critical errors. First, she's been using joint credit cards to finance her affair. That's dissipation of marital assets. Second, she's been lying about her whereabouts, which speaks to character. Third, she's been conducting this affair with a married man, which shows a pattern of deception. She spread the evidence across her conference table like she was dealing cards. In Virginia, we have equitable distribution laws, which means the court tries to divide assets fairly. But when one spouse has been dissipating marital assets on an extramarital affair, the other spouse can be awarded a larger share as compensation. What does that mean in practical terms? It means your wife is about to discover that adultery has consequences. The house, the retirement accounts, the investment portfolio. I can make a strong case that you deserve the lion's share. And her job? Fisher smiled, and it wasn't particularly warm. That's where things get interesting. Lila works in HR, correct? And she's been having an affair with someone outside the company? That's right. Most companies have morality clauses in their executive contracts. If her employer decides that her conduct reflects poorly on the company, especially once word spreads, they may have grounds for termination. The satisfaction I felt was probably not healthy, but I didn't care. For months, Lila had been making me feel like I was crazy, like I was imagining things. Now I had proof, legal representation, and a plan. What's our next move? We file for immediate temporary support and exclusive use of the marital home. She can stay in a hotel until the divorce is finalized. Can we do that? Mr. Parker, she's been stealing from your marriage to fund her affair. The court will not look kindly on that behavior. I left Fisher's office feeling better than I had in months. The sun seemed brighter, the air cleaner. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt like I was in control of my own life. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. Coffee? I have updates. We met at a cafe downtown, far enough from both our neighborhoods to avoid running into mutual friends. Amanda looked like she'd slept well for the first time in weeks. Max came home at 3 a.m., she said without preamble, drunk, angry, and stupid. He tried to convince me that last night was all a big misunderstanding. How'd that go? About as well as you'd expect. I recorded the whole conversation. She pulled out her phone and hit play. Max's voice came through the speaker, slurred and belligerent. You can't just destroy my life because you're jealous, Amanda. Lila and I have history. We have a connection you could never understand. So you admit you're having an affair? I admit I'm tired of being married to someone who doesn't appreciate what I've built. Lila understands my ambitions. Your ambitions to cheat on your wife? My ambitions to be with someone who actually supports me instead of questioning every decision I make. Amanda stopped the recording. He kept going for another 10 minutes. Full confession, plus some lovely details about how their affair has been going on for 4 months. 4 months. I shook my head. All those nights she said she was working late or out with girlfriends. Speaking of girlfriends, you might want to brace yourself. Sophie Morrison called me this morning. Sophie was Lila's best friend from college, the kind of woman who lived for drama and gossip. If Sophie was calling Amanda, it meant the story was spreading fast. What did she say? That Lila called her at 6 a.m., crying and begging her to help fix this. Apparently, Lila wants Sophie to convince you that it was all a mistake, that she never meant for it to go this far. And what did Sophie say to that? Amanda's grin was wicked. That she's been telling Lila for months that this would end badly, and now that it has, Lila can live with the consequences. Sophie said that. Word for word. Turns out your wife's best friend has been documenting this whole affair in text messages, thinking she might need to protect herself if it all came out. She's willing to testify in divorce court about Lila's state of mind and intentions. The hits just kept coming. I was starting to understand why they called it the nuclear option. My phone rang. Lila's number. Answer it, Amanda said, but put it on speaker. Hello, Lila. Ethan, thank God, we need to talk. This whole thing has gotten completely out of hand. Has it? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems pretty straightforward. You've been having an affair and now we're getting divorced. It's not that simple. What Max and I have, it's not just physical. We have a connection, a history. But that doesn't mean I want to end our marriage. I looked at Amanda, who was shaking her head in disbelief. So, you want to stay married to me while you continue your relationship with Max? I want us to go to counseling. I want to work through this. 20 years of marriage is worth fighting for. You should have thought of that before you started sleeping with your ex-boyfriend. Ethan, please. I made a mistake, but 4 months isn't a mistake, Lila. It's a choice. A series of choices. And now I'm making my choice. You can't just throw away 20 years because of one indiscretion. One indiscretion? I couldn't keep the laugh out of my voice. Lila, you texted me from your affair asking for a ride home. That's not an indiscretion. That's contempt. The line went quiet for a long moment. Where am I supposed to stay? You changed the locks. That's not my problem anymore. Maybe Max has a suggestion. His wife threw him out too. He's staying at the club. Then I guess you two can figure it out together. You're good at that. I hung up and looked at Amanda. Think that was too harsh? I think it was perfect. She needs to understand that actions have consequences. My phone immediately started ringing again. Lila's number. Don't answer, Amanda advised. Let her sit with what you said. We spent the next hour planning our strategy. Amanda's divorce was further along than mine. She'd been suspicious longer and had started collecting evidence earlier. But we could coordinate our efforts, share information, and make sure both Max and Lila understood that they'd picked the wrong spouses to betray. There's one more thing, Amanda said, as we prepared to leave. I did some digging into Max's business. The Riverside Club is in financial trouble. He's been using the business accounts to pay for hotels and gifts for your wife. That's embezzlement. That's exactly what it is, and I've already contacted the IRS. I stared at her. Amanda, you're terrifying. I prefer thorough. Max wanted to destroy my marriage for his own selfish reasons. Now he gets to find out what happens when you mess with someone smarter than you are. As I drove home, I felt a strange sense of peace. For months, I'd been living in a fog of confusion and self-doubt. Was I imagining things? Was I being paranoid? Was there an innocent explanation for all of Lila's suspicious behavior? Now I knew the truth, and more importantly, I knew what I was going to do about it. The house felt different when I walked in. Bigger somehow, like it had been holding its breath and could finally exhale. I walked through the rooms Lila and I had shared for 15 years, looking at everything with new eyes. The wedding photos on the mantel, the furniture we'd picked out together, the kitchen where we'd cooked dinner and planned our future. It had all been real once. We'd been happy, or at least I thought we had. But somewhere along the way, Lila had decided that what we had wasn't enough. She'd decided that I wasn't enough. That was her choice to make. But living with the consequences was going to be mine to watch. My phone buzzed with a text from Dave. Dinner tonight? Maria wants to meet you, and I'm buying. I texted back, absolutely. And Dave, thanks for having my back. Always, brother. Always. As the sun set over Riverside, I sat in my living room now, and started planning the next phase of my life. A life without lies, without betrayal, without wondering where my wife really was when she said she was working late. It was going to be a good life. 3 days after the club incident, I was back at work, trying to focus on a commercial renovation project, when my phone started buzzing with notifications. Facebook, Instagram, text messages, all coming in faster than I could read them. The first text was from Dave. Dude, you need to see this. Lila's losing her mind on social media. I opened Facebook to find that my wife had posted a 500-word essay titled, When Your Husband Abandons You in Your Hour of Need. The post painted me as a cruel, vindictive man who had ambushed her at the club and was now destroying her reputation out of spite. The comment section was a battlefield. Sophie Morrison had written, Girl, you brought this on yourself. We all tried to warn you. My sister-in-law had posted, Maybe don't cheat on your husband if you want him to be supportive. But there were defenders too. Lila's cousin. Ethan always seemed controlling. I'm not surprised he'd try to destroy her like this. One of her co-workers. There are two sides to every story. Marriage is complicated. I was scrolling through the comments when my phone rang. Jennifer Fisher. Mr. Parker, we have a problem. Your wife has retained counsel, and they're playing dirty. What do you mean? They've filed a motion claiming you've been financially abusive, that you've locked her out of the house without cause, and that you've been harassing her through social media. That's all bullshit. I know that, and you know that, but we need to respond carefully. Can you be in my office in an hour? On my way. I told my project foreman I had a family emergency and drove downtown, my mind racing. Lila was fighting back, which I'd expected, but accusing me of financial abuse? That was low, even for her. Fisher's office was buzzing with activity when I arrived. She had 3 paralegals working on my case, and the conference table was covered with documents. They're represented by Hamilton and Associates, Fisher said without preamble. Expensive firm that specializes in high-conflict divorces. They're going to try to paint you as the villain and Lila as the victim. Based on what? Based on nothing, but that won't stop them from trying. Look at this motion. She handed me a legal document that made my blood boil. According to Lila's lawyer, I was a controlling and vindictive husband who had systematically isolated my wife from her friends and family. The motion claimed I had orchestrated a public humiliation designed to destroy her career and social standing. "This is fiction," I said. "It's strategy. They're hoping to get you angry enough to do something stupid. Don't take the bait." "What's our response?" Fisher smiled grimly. "We bury them in evidence. Bank records showing she spent $15,000 of marital funds on her affair, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, gift purchases, text messages, photos, video evidence from the club." She pulled out another folder. "And thanks to your friend Amanda, we have something even better. Max Webb's business records." She got his business records? She's still legally his wife, and she's still on the business accounts. Turns out Max has been stealing from his own club to finance his lifestyle. The IRS is very interested in his creative accounting. How does that help me? Because your wife has been the beneficiary of stolen money. Every gift he gave her, every hotel room he paid for, it all came from embezzled funds. That makes her an accessory after the fact. I sat back in my chair, stunned. "Are you saying Lila could face criminal charges?" "I'm saying her lawyer is about to have a very bad day when we present our evidence." Fisher's phone rang. She listened for a moment, then looked at me with raised eyebrows. "That was my paralegal. Lila Parker just showed up in our lobby demanding to speak with you." "She's here? Now?" "Building security is with her. Should I have them escort her out?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted to avoid the confrontation, to handle everything through lawyers like civilized people. But another part of me, the part that had been lied to for 4 months, wanted to look my wife in the eye and hear her try to justify what she'd done. "Bring her up," I said, "but keep security close." 5 minutes later, Lila walked into the conference room, and I barely recognized her. The polished, professional woman I'd been married to for 20 years looked haggard and desperate. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her makeup was smeared, and she was wearing the same clothes she'd had on at the club 3 nights ago. "Ethan, thank God. We need to talk." "We are talking, through our lawyers." "No, we need to talk alone, as husband and wife." Fisher started to object, but I held up a hand. "It's okay. I want to hear this." Lila sat down across from me, her hands shaking as she placed them on the table. "This has all gotten so out of hand. I never wanted it to go this far."
In my house! You bastard!
Relax, man. It's just business.
Please, don't shoot!
Get off!
You won't do it. You don't have the guts.
Don't! Please don't shoot him! Please! I'm begging you! Don't do this! No! Please, no!
What did you want, Lila? Did you want me to just pretend I didn't know? Did you want me to keep playing the fool while you had your affair? I wanted time to figure things out. Max and I, what we have is complicated. It's not complicated. You're married to me, and you're sleeping with him. That's adultery. It's not just about intimacy, Ethan. Max understands me in ways you never have. He sees my potential, my ambitions. He makes me feel alive. I looked at this woman I'd loved for 2 decades and felt nothing but pity. So, I make you feel dead? You make me feel settled, safe, comfortable. But I'm only 38 years old, Ethan. I don't want to be comfortable. I want passion. I want excitement. I want to feel like anything is possible. And you couldn't feel that with me. When was the last time we talked about our dreams? When was the last time we took a risk together? When was the last time you looked at me like I was the most fascinating woman in the world? The questions hit harder than I'd expected, because she wasn't entirely wrong. We had settled into a routine. We had gotten comfortable. So, instead of talking to me about it, you decided to have an affair. I didn't plan it. Max and I just ran into each other at that conference in Richmond, and we started talking, and all those old feelings came rushing back. He reminded me of who I used to be before I became just your wife. Just my wife. I repeated the words, tasting their bitterness. 20 years of marriage, and that's how you see yourself? That's how everyone sees me, Lila Parker, Ethan's wife, the woman who gave up her dreams to support her husband's career. What dreams did you give up? You're an HR director making 6 figures. You have your own career. I wanted to start my own consulting firm. I wanted to travel. I wanted to write a book about workplace dynamics. But every time I brought it up, you found reasons why it wasn't practical. I stared at her, searching my memory. Had I done that? Had I been holding her back without realizing it? Even if that's true, I said finally, it doesn't justify what you've done. I know it was wrong. But Ethan, I've been so unhappy for so long, and I didn't know how to tell you without destroying everything we'd built. So you decided to destroy it anyway, just more slowly. Lila started crying then, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. I never meant for you to find out like this. I thought maybe Max and I would run our course, and I could come back to you, and you'd never have to know. Come back to me? Like I'm some kind of backup plan? Like you're my husband, and I love you, even if I'm not in love with you anymore. The honesty was brutal, but it was also clarifying. Lila, do you understand what you've done? Not just to me, but to yourself? She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I've made a mess of everything. You've made it impossible for us to ever trust each other again. Even if I wanted to forgive you, which I don't, how could I ever believe anything you tell me? How could I ever feel secure in our marriage again? People work through affairs, Ethan. Couples therapy, marriage counseling. People work through affairs when both partners want to save the marriage. But you just told me you're not in love with me anymore. You told me I make you feel dead inside. What exactly am I supposed to work with here? She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. I want to try, she said finally. No, you don't. You want me to forgive you so you don't have to face the consequences of what you've done. You want me to take you back so you don't have to explain to everyone why your marriage failed. That's not true, isn't it? Where's Max in all this, Lila? If what you two have is so special, why isn't he here fighting for you? Why isn't he offering to leave his wife and build a life with you? Her face crumpled. His wife is taking everything. The house, the business, his cars. He says he needs time to get back on his feet before we can be together. So, he's abandoning you. He's being practical. He's being a coward. And you're being a fool if you think he's going to choose you over his financial security. Fisher cleared her throat. Mr. Parker, we should discuss the legal issues. I looked at Lila one more time. You had 20 years of my loyalty, my love, and my support. You threw it away for a man who won't even stand by you when things get difficult. I hope it was worth it. Ethan, please, we're done, Lila. Sign the papers, take your settlement, and move on with your life. But don't expect me to make this easy for you. I stood up to leave, but Lila grabbed my arm. I know you hate me right now, but someday you'll understand. Someday you'll realize that I set us both free to find real happiness. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. Lila, I don't hate you. I pity you, because you had real happiness, and you were too foolish to recognize it. I walked out of the conference room and didn't look back. Fisher caught up with me at the elevators. That went better than I expected. How do you figure? She just admitted to adultery in front of witnesses. She confessed that the marriage is irretrievably broken, and she gave us insight into her state of mind that we can use in court. What happens now? Now, we file our response to their motion, along with all our evidence. We request temporary support, exclusive use of the marital home, and we start the discovery process. How long will this take? In Virginia, 6 to 12 months depending on how much they want to fight. And what are the chances we win? Fisher smiled. Mr. Parker, your wife just confessed to adultery and told you she's not in love with you anymore. In a state that still considers fault in divorce proceedings, those are the magic words. As I drove back to work, I thought about what Lila had said. Had I been holding her back? Had I been too comfortable? Too settled? Maybe. Probably. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. If she'd been unhappy, she should have talked to me. If she'd wanted to pursue her dreams, we could have figured out a way to make it work. Instead, she'd chosen deception and betrayal. She'd chosen to make me the villain in her story so she could justify her affair. That was her choice to make. But living with the consequences was going to be hers to endure. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. How did it go? I texted back, she confessed everything. How's your day going? Max just got arrested for embezzlement. I'll call you tonight with details. I laughed out loud in my truck. Sometimes karma worked faster than you expected. 2 weeks later, I was having the best morning I'd had in months. The sun was shining, my coffee was perfect, and my lawyer had just called with good news. Lila's legal team wanted to settle. They're offering a 60-40 split of assets in your favor, Fisher had said. Plus, she's agreed to waive spousal support. What changed their minds? The embezzlement charges against Max Webb. Your wife's affair partner is facing federal charges, and she's been identified as someone who received stolen funds. Her lawyers want this resolved before she gets dragged into his criminal case. I was savoring this victory when my phone rang. Dave. Turn on Channel 7 News, he said without preamble. Why? Just do it. Trust me. I grabbed the remote and flipped to the local news station. The morning anchor was interviewing Amanda Chen outside the federal courthouse. Mrs. Chen, how do you feel about your husband's arrest on embezzlement charges? Amanda looked directly into the camera, composed and professional. I'm relieved that the truth has finally come out. Max Webb stole over $200,000 from his own business to finance an extramarital affair. The IRS, the FBI, and the Virginia Department of Taxation are all investigating his financial crimes. What about the other woman involved in this case? Lila Parker knowingly accepted gifts and benefits purchased with stolen money. Whether she faces charges is up to the federal prosecutor, but she's certainly going to have to explain her role in this scheme. The anchor turned to face the camera. Webb's nightclub, the Riverside Club, has been closed pending investigation. Webb remains in federal custody, with bail set at $500,000. I turned off the TV and called Amanda. Holy shit, I said when she answered. I know, right? It's been a busy morning. How are you holding up? I'm fantastic. Do you know what it feels like to watch your cheating husband get arrested on live television? It's better than Christmas. I laughed. Any word on whether Lila will be charged? My sources at the FBI say it depends on how cooperative she is. If she testifies against Max, they might give her immunity. If she tries to protect him, she'll protect him. She's still convinced he's going to leave his wife for her. Well, technically, he's leaving me for a federal prison cell, so she might get her wish. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about the past month. 4 weeks ago, I'd been a man living in denial, pretending not to notice the signs that my marriage was falling apart. Today, I was a man in control of his own destiny, watching his wife's affair partner get arrested on federal charges. It was a hell of a transformation. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Lila. I need to see you. It's important. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. 5 minutes later, another text. Ethan, please. I'm scared. Delete. Then my landline rang. I almost didn't answer it, but something made me pick up. Ethan, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all morning. What do you want, Lila? I need your help. The FBI wants to interview me about Max. They think I knew about the embezzlement. Did you? Of course not. I thought he was just successful. I had no idea he was stealing money. That's not my problem anymore. Ethan, please. I know I hurt you, but we were married for 20 years. Doesn't that count for something? I thought about it. 20 years of marriage, 20 years of shared dreams, shared struggles, shared victories, 20 years of building a life together, and 4 months of her throwing it all away for a man who was now in federal custody. It counted for something, I said. Right up until you decided it didn't. I made a mistake, a terrible, stupid mistake, but I don't deserve to go to prison for it. You won't go to prison if you didn't commit a crime. You don't understand. They're saying I received stolen property. The jewelry, the hotel rooms, the dinners, it all came from money Max embezzled. They could charge me as an accessory. Then you should get a good criminal defense attorney. I can't afford one. The divorce is costing me everything. The irony was rich. Lila had destroyed our marriage for a man who turned out to be a criminal, and now she wanted me to help her deal with the consequences. That's not my problem, Lila. Ethan, I'm begging you. If I cooperate with the FBI, if I testify against Max, they'll give me immunity. But I need a lawyer to negotiate the deal. So get a lawyer. With what money? You froze our accounts. I'm staying in a motel, driving a rental car, and living off credit cards. You should have thought about that before you started your affair. The line went quiet for a long moment. I know you think I deserve this, she said finally. But Max lied to me too. He told me he was wealthy, that he was successful. I had no idea he was stealing money. But you knew he was married. That's different. Is it? You were both lying to your spouses. You were both deceiving the people who trusted you most. The only difference is that Max was also stealing money. So you're just going to let me go to prison? I'm not letting you do anything. You made your choices, and now you get to live with them. This isn't the man I married. The Ethan I married would never abandon someone he loved when they needed help. You're right. The Ethan you married would have helped you, but you divorced him when you started sleeping with Max Webb. I hung up and turned off the phone. An hour later, someone was pounding on my front door. I looked through the peephole and saw Lila standing on my porch, looking desperate and wild-eyed. Ethan, I know you're in there. Please, just talk to me. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. You're trespassing. This is my house too. Not anymore. The court awarded me exclusive use pending the divorce settlement. She pushed past me into the living room, and I had to admit she looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes were wrinkled, and she had dark circles under her eyes. Jesus, Lila, when's the last time you slept? I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see FBI agents and prison cells and my life falling apart. She collapsed onto the couch, our couch, where we'd watched movies and shared quiet evenings for 15 years. The FBI showed me pictures, Ethan. Pictures of me wearing jewelry that Max bought with stolen money. Pictures of us at restaurants he paid for with embezzled funds. Pictures of us at hotels he booked with money he stole from his own business. What did you tell them? The truth. That I didn't know where the money came from. That I thought he was just generous. Do they believe you? I don't know. They want me to testify against him, to tell them everything about our relationship, dates, times, places, conversations. Are you going to do it? She looked at me with tears in her eyes. He's the father of my unborn child, Ethan. The words hit me like a physical blow. I sat down hard in my recliner, staring at her. What did you just say? I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. I found out yesterday. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. You're pregnant. With Max's baby. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I know this makes everything worse, but... Get out. What? Get out of my house. Now. Ethan, please, get out! She flinched at the volume of my voice, but she didn't move. I have nowhere else to go. That's not my problem. This baby is innocent in all this. Whatever you think of me, whatever I've done, This child doesn't deserve to suffer. I looked at this woman who had been my wife, who was carrying another man's child, who was asking me to help her avoid prison for crimes connected to her affair. "You're right," I said finally. "The baby is innocent. But you're not. And I'm not responsible for the consequences of your choices. So what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to figure it out. Like an adult. Like the independent woman you wanted to be when you decided our marriage wasn't enough for you." I walked to the front door and opened it. "You have 5 minutes to leave, or I'm calling the police." She stood up slowly, moving like an old woman. "I loved you, Ethan. I know you don't believe that now, but I did love you." "No, you didn't. You loved the security I provided. You loved having a backup plan, but you didn't love me. If you had loved me, you never would have done this." She walked past me toward the door, then turned back. "When this baby is born, when you see pictures on social media, when you realize that I'm building a family with someone else, you're going to regret this moment." I looked at her one last time, this woman who had shared my bed for 20 years, who had promised to love and honor me until death do us part. "The only thing I regret," I said, "is not seeing who you really were sooner." She left without another word. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. Pregnant. She was pregnant with Max Webb's baby, a man who was now in federal prison, facing years behind bars. My phone rang. Amanda. "I just heard from my FBI contact. Lila's agreed to testify against Max in exchange for immunity." "She's pregnant." "What?" "Lila's pregnant, with Max's baby." Amanda was quiet for a long moment. "Well, that complicates things." "How so?" "A pregnant woman testifying against the father of her unborn child? That's going to be compelling testimony. The jury will see her as a victim, too." "She is a victim. She's also a perpetrator." "The FBI doesn't care about your marriage, Ethan. They care about convicting Max Webb. If Lila can help them do that, they'll give her whatever deal she wants." After we hung up, I sat in my empty house and thought about the future. In a few months, Lila would have Max's baby. She'd probably move away, start over somewhere new. Maybe she'd find happiness with someone else. Maybe she'd realize what she'd thrown away. Or maybe she'd convince herself that she was the victim in all this, that I was the villain who abandoned her in her hour of need. I didn't care anymore. Her story was hers to tell. Her life was hers to live. And my life was mine to reclaim. I pulled out my phone and called Dave. "Want to grab dinner tonight? I have some news." "Good news or bad news?" "Complicated news. But I think it's going to work out in my favor." "I'll pick you up at 7. "And Ethan?" "Yeah? Whatever happened today, you're going to be okay. You know that, right?" I looked around my house now, and felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in months. "Yeah, Dave, I'm going to be just fine." 6 months later, I was a different man, living a different life. The divorce had been finalized, the house was officially mine, and I'd started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but it felt good to remember that there were women in the world who valued honesty and loyalty. Lila had testified against Max, who'd been sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. She'd given birth to a daughter and moved back to her hometown in North Carolina to live with her parents. We hadn't spoken since that day she'd showed up at my door. I thought the drama was behind me. I was wrong. It started with a phone call from Jennifer Fisher on a Tuesday morning in November. "Ethan, we have a situation. Lila's back in town, and she's filed a motion for post-divorce support." "What kind of support? The divorce is final." "She's claiming that circumstances have changed substantially since the divorce. She's a single mother now, unemployed, and she's arguing that you have a moral obligation to help support her and the child." "It's not my child. I know that, and you know that. But her lawyer is making an emotional argument about your 20-year marriage and your moral duty to help someone who was once your family. What are the chances this succeeds? Legally? Almost zero. Emotionally? Depends on the judge. When's the hearing? Next Friday. And Ethan? There's something else. She's been talking to reporters. My stomach dropped. What kind of reporters? Local news, some online blogs, a few national outlets that cover human interest stories. She's positioning herself as a victim of a vindictive ex-husband who abandoned a pregnant woman. That's not what happened. I know, but she's telling a very different story. That evening, I got a call from Dave. Dude, you need to see this. Lila did an interview with Channel 7. I turned on the news, and there she was, sitting in what looked like her parents' living room, holding a baby girl who had Max's dark hair and eyes. My ex-husband was my best friend for 20 years, Lila was saying to the reporter. When I made the biggest mistake of my life, I expected him to be angry. I expected him to need time, but I never expected him to completely abandon me when I needed help the most. The reporter leaned forward sympathetically. Tell us about that period after your affair partner was arrested. I was facing federal charges. I was pregnant and alone. I had no money, no job, nowhere to live, and when I asked Ethan for help, not to take me back, just to help me get through the legal process, he slammed the door in my face. How did that make you feel? Heartbroken. This was a man who'd promised to love me in sickness and in health for better or worse. I know I broke our marriage vows, but I thought our friendship would survive. I thought he'd care enough about me as a person to help me when I was in trouble. The camera zoomed in on the baby. This is your daughter, Emma. Yes, she's 6 months old now. Her father is in federal prison, and her mother is struggling to rebuild her life. I'm not asking Ethan to be her father. I'm just asking him to remember that he once cared about me enough to marry me. What would you say to him if he were watching right now? Lila looked directly into the camera, tears in her eyes. I'd say I'm sorry. I'm sorry for hurting you. I'm sorry for betraying your trust, and I'm sorry for destroying the best thing in both our lives. But I'd also ask you to remember the good times. Remember the couple we used to be. Remember that you once loved me enough to promise me forever. The segment ended with information about Lila's GoFundMe page, which had apparently raised $12,000 for a single mother trying to rebuild her life after making a mistake. I turned off the TV and called Amanda. Did you see it? I asked. I saw it. She's good. I'll give her that. She's rewriting history. She's doing what she has to do to survive. But Ethan, you need to be prepared. This story is getting traction online. People are calling you heartless. People who don't know the whole story. Right, which is why you need to tell your side. I'm not doing interviews. You might not have a choice. This narrative is getting out of hand. Amanda was right. Over the next few days, the story exploded on social media. Justice for Lila was trending on Twitter. Facebook groups were sharing her interview with comments like, "What kind of man abandons his wife when she's pregnant? And 20 years of marriage should count for something." The comment section on the news station's website was brutal. This guy is a sociopath. She made one mistake and he destroyed her entire life. She cheated, but that doesn't mean she deserves to be homeless with a baby. He got his revenge. Now he should man up and help her. But there were defenders too. She didn't make one mistake. She had a 4-month affair with a criminal. Actions have consequences. She chose to destroy her marriage. Why should he pay for another man's child? My phone was ringing constantly. Reporters, old friends, distant relatives who'd seen the story. I stopped answering calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Then Sophie Morrison called. "Ethan, it's Sophie. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I think you should know what's really going on." "I'm listening." Lila's not as desperate as she's pretending to be. Her parents bought her a house, she's got a job lined up at a marketing firm in Charlotte, and Max's family is sending her money for the baby. Then why the sob story? Because she's still angry at you. She thinks you humiliated her, and now she wants to return the favor. By making me look like a monster on television? By making you the villain in her redemption story? She's not trying to get money from you, Ethan. She's trying to destroy your reputation the way she thinks you destroyed hers. After Sophie hung up, I sat in my kitchen and thought about my options. I could ignore the whole thing and hope it blew over. I could do interviews and tell my side of the story. Or I could take a more direct approach. I chose option 3. Friday morning, I showed up at the courthouse for Lila's motion hearing. She was there with her lawyer, looking polished and professional in a way that contradicted her claims of poverty. When she saw me, her face went pale. "Mr. Parker," her lawyer said, "we weren't expecting you to appear in person." "I wouldn't miss it," I replied. Judge Harrison called the case, and Lila's lawyer began his presentation. He painted a picture of a desperate single mother, abandoned by her ex-husband, struggling to provide for her child. "Your Honor, Mrs. Parker made a mistake during her marriage. She's admitted that. She's taken responsibility for it, and she's paid the price. But her daughter shouldn't have to suffer because of her mother's errors in judgment." When it was Fisher's turn, she stood up with a folder full of documents. "Your Honor, Mrs. Parker is not the victim she's portraying herself to be. She's employed, she owns a home, and she's receiving financial support from multiple sources. This motion is not about need, it's about revenge." Fisher presented bank records showing Lila's actual financial situation, employment records from her new job, and property records showing the house her parents had purchased for her. "Furthermore," Fisher continued, "Mrs. Parker has been conducting a media campaign designed to damage my client's reputation. She's raised thousands of dollars through crowdfunding based on false claims of poverty and abandonment." Judge Harrison looked at Lila over his glasses. "Mrs. Parker, is it true that you own a home in North Carolina?" "My parents helped me purchase it, Your Honor." "And is it true that you're employed?" "I start a new job next month." "And is it true that you've raised money through crowdfunding?" Lila's lawyer whispered something to her. "Yes, Your Honor, but—" "Mrs. Parker, this court does not appreciate being misled. Your motion for post-divorce support is denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to pay Mr. Parker's attorney fees for having to defend against this frivolous motion." As we left the courthouse, Lila caught up with me in the parking lot. "You couldn't just let me have this, could you?" "Let you have what? The right to lie about me on television?" "I needed people to understand my side of the story. Your side of the story is that you had an affair with a criminal, got pregnant, and then expected your ex-husband to clean up the mess. That's not fair. Isn't it? Lila, you've been lying for so long I don't think you even know what the truth is anymore." She was quiet for a moment, looking down at her hands. "I loved you, Ethan. I really did." "No, you didn't. You loved the idea of me. You loved having someone reliable to fall back on. But you didn't love me enough to be faithful, and you didn't love me enough to be honest. So this is it? This is how our story ends?" I looked at this woman who had shared 20 years of my life, who had given me some of my happiest memories and my deepest pain. "Our story ended the night you texted me from the club. Everything since then has just been cleanup." She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. "For what it's worth, I hope you find happiness." "I already have," I said. "It turns out happiness was always there. I just had to stop letting you steal it from me." As I drove home, I thought about the past year. The betrayal, the divorce, the media circus, the court hearing. It had been the worst year of my life, but also the most important. I'd learned that I was stronger than I thought. I'd learned that I deserved better than someone who would lie to my face for months. I'd learned that sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their bad choices. And I'd learned that the end of one story can be the beginning of a better one. My phone rang. Amanda. "How did it go?" Judge threw out her motion and ordered her to pay my attorney fees. "Excellent. Want to celebrate? I'm buying dinner." Actually, I have a date tonight. Oh, really? Anyone I know? Her name's Sandra. She's a teacher. We met at Dave's barbecue last month. And? And she's honest, she's kind, and she thinks 20 years of loyalty is something to be valued, not discarded. Sounds perfect. She is. Or at least, she's perfect for me. As I got ready for my date, I caught sight of myself in the bathroom mirror. I looked like a man who'd been through hell and come out the other side. Older, maybe. Wiser, definitely. But also happier than I'd been in years. My phone buzzed with a text from Sandra. Looking forward to tonight. Fair warning. I'm going to ask you about your day, and I actually want to hear the answer. I smiled and texted back. Fair warning. I actually want to tell you about it. At 7 o'clock, I picked up Sandra Martinez, a beautiful, intelligent woman who'd never once lied to me about where she was going or who she was with. We went to dinner at a quiet restaurant downtown, and I told her about the court hearing, about Lila's media campaign, about the whole ridiculous situation. How do you feel about it all? She asked. Relieved. For the first time in a year, I feel like I can close this chapter and move on. And what does moving on look like? I looked across the table at this woman who made me laugh, who challenged me intellectually, who treated me with respect and kindness. It looks like this, I said. It looks like being with someone who values what we have instead of looking for something better. Sandra smiled. I like the sound of that. As we walked to my truck after dinner, she took my hand. Thank you, she said. For what? For being brave enough to start over, for refusing to settle for less than you deserve, for showing me what it looks like when someone fights for their own happiness. I squeezed her hand and realized that this was what Lila had been looking for all along. That feeling of being alive, of being excited about the future, of feeling like anything was possible. She'd just been looking for it in all the wrong places. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed, in my own house, next to a woman who'd chosen to be there. No lies, no deception, no wondering where she really was or who she was really with. Just honesty, respect, and the promise of a future built on trust instead of betrayal. I checked my phone and saw that Lila's interview had been taken down from the news station's website. The GoFundMe page had been closed. The social media storm had moved on to the next controversy. It was over. All of it. I made coffee and sat on my back deck, watching the sun rise over the city where I'd built my life, lost my marriage, and found myself again. My phone buzzed with a text from Dave. Saw the news about the court hearing. Proud of you, brother. I texted back. Thanks for having my back through all of this. Always. That's what friends do. And that, I realized, was the difference between Dave and Lila, between Sandra and Lila, between the life I was building now and the life I'd lost. Real love, whether friendship or romance, meant showing up when things got difficult. It meant choosing loyalty over convenience, truth over comfort, commitment over excitement. Lila had never understood that. She'd thought love was a feeling, something that happened to you, something you either had or you didn't. But love was a choice. A daily decision to put someone else's needs alongside your own, to build something together instead of tearing it down for temporary pleasure. I'd made that choice every day for 20 years. Now I was making it again, with someone who was making the same choice. And this time, I was confident it would last. Because this time, we were both choosing it.